Hello, my name is Mandel Chudnow. I was born in 1930 in Detroit, Michigan. What? Toby! I'll be back.
I choose not to disclose the year in which I was born. I think it's inappropriate for women to discuss their age.
I was born in 1930 in downtown Detroit in a hospital, I think the Children's Hospital.
I was born in Detroit in a house. My mother didn't believe in going to a hospital, and she didn't have any money to go anyway. And at the time I was born, the doctor offered her, who was in the depression, in the deepest part of the depression, and the doctor who delivered me, whose name was Dr. Block, Abraham Block, offered her $1,000 because he had a sister who was childless. And my mother refused. And they certainly needed the money more than they needed the baby, me.
My father was born in Russia, was one of six children, and the only one to come to United States, and he came in 1914.
My father came from Lithuania. He had gone to a school in Vilnius, a yeshiva, and he had to bring his little brother because the Tsar was going to take him away to be used as cannon fodder, as all Jewish boys were taken away, never to be seen again.
We grew up in the west side of Detroit, and at first not a very Jewish neighborhood. Uh, Again, it was all arranged for my father. He had all these things going for him. They had a girl for him. They had a place for him to work. They had a place for him to live, and he accepted it and just went with the flow. Oh God! Went to Custer. That was their first school. Then I went to Roosevelt, and following Roosevelt, there was a complex that had three um, schools together. They had elementary, intermediate, and high school. So I went to all three. So Roosevelt was the first one, and Durfee was the second one, and Central was the third one.
I think I started school in a school called Alger, and Alger Elementary, and that was east of Woodward, and in an area that's the where the neighborhood started to change from white to primarily African American, and it became dangerous. We lived in an enormous house, and my mother used to make her own noodles every Thursday night to cook for Shabbos, and she'd roll out these noodles on the table, on the dining room table, and that's what she would do. One of the things she would do to get ready for Shabbos. It was very interesting, and we had a maid's, some kind of servants' quarters, and a back stairway. And I liked Alger School, and then we moved. And the next school I remember going to was Crosman Elementary, which is off of Hamilton and around Taylor. And I had a very long walk because at that time I lived in Taylor, and I had to walk all the way to Hamilton to get to that school. And there were some very wealthy children at that school, and several chauffeurs would come with the mother or father to pick up these children after school. And I had another friend whose mother would always come with a raincoat and galoshes whenever it rained, but my mother was never around. She was always working.
The war was always was very difficult because everything was rationed. Uh, the the people were very interested in what was going on in Europe, especially because the Jews were being slaughtered in Germany.
I think I was in the 5th and 6th grade in Thurkel. I might have also been in the 4th grade, I don't know. But the war was on, and I remember when they announced the invasion of Europe, and then of course when the war ended, it was summertime and there was no school. But it seems to me the same year Hank Greenberg hit some kind of a special home run or something and won the pennant for the Tigers.
Yeah, I had some friends. I never had a lot. Didn't have any girlfriends. Manny Foner was a friend, and that was because we shared the same name and became friends because of it. And then Byron Jaffe was a high school buddy. He moved east. He lives in New Jersey, and everybody else was occasional friend or a short-term friend. I had a very close friend when I was 12 or 13, who was growing up to become a rabbi, and very heavily involved in the religious aspect. So when we no longer had any interest together, we drifted apart. His name was Sander Singer. Wonderfully exciting life, right?
I always had a job. I had to take care of cleaning the house. My mother would make the furnace because my father would frequently just disappear. He'd make up his mind he had to go away for something. He didn't take my mother. He just had to go away himself. But during the Second World War, he worked at a place called Super Tool, far out on Van Dyke, and I want to say maybe 18 Mile Road, which in those days was all farm. And he had a wonderful job, and he made what was considered a good wage at that time. But he had the wanderlust all the time.
I never had ambitions. I thought I'd be a salesman like my father.
I was about 10 years old, and I had to, Manny, the pot is going to burn. Turn off the ice, put some cold water on it. Something is pounding. How do you like the house?
It's nice.
It's a terrible mess. And I went to work with my brother-in-law who took myself. At the time I wasn't 12, I guess I must have been about 11. We used to peddle anklets in the housing projects. He would buy a quantity of socks. You don't call them anklets. He would buy a quantity of socks, and we would go to what was called the Willow Run Housing Project, which was where people had come primarily from the South and gotten jobs in the factory for the war. And we would knock on the doors. This was, they were thrown up quickly, but they were sound buildings. And this is how my brother-in-law made his living off my nephew only wanted to play baseball, but he had to come. If I was going, he had to go. I was willing to go. He was not willing, but he went anyway. Today, those things don't happen. Can you imagine sending an 11-year-old kid to knock on doors to sell?
There's another knock on doors.
To sell something with strangers?